Well, as I mentioned, Jonathan Thomas had a lot of success in Southern California last weekend. He is now in the Bluegrass at Keeneland, and he joins us now here on the Equine Forum. Jonathan, good morning, my friend.
Mike, how's it going?
Doing really well, man. Congrats on that nice weekend.
Yeah, we had a great weekend. Mrs. Astor showed up and does what she's been doing all winter and, got the job done in a paceless race. We were really proud of her, and we took a flyer in the San Juan Capistrano with a long shot and almost got it done. So, yeah, we were really, really thrilled with the way the horses performed.
Mrs. Astor has been so consistent. Tell me more about that effort and the possibly perfect and about Mrs. Astor.
She's a filly I probably mismanaged a little bit early in her career, running her too short. Once she cleared her first level allowance, we went ahead and stretched her out. And since we stretched her out, it's just been a game changer for her. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of opportunity for a maiden or first level allowance to run, a mile, quarter, mile 3, mile and a half. So, but once we were able to get her out there on firm turf, stretch her out, get a little pace in front of her, it really was a game changer, and she's just been the model of consistency, all winter. And she's won graded stakes or stakes at a 1.125 miles, 1.25 miles, 1.3 miles, which is a really hard thing for a horse to do. So we're just really proud of her.
Interesting, Jonathan, to hear you say maybe I mismanaged her a little earlier in her career. What does it mean when a trainer says that? Do you put her in the wrong spot? Do you train her the wrong way? What's that mean?
I think I feel like we trained her the right way, but the opportunities to run her long are few and far between. New York, thank God, still has a couple options. But outside of that, you're kind of relegated to running a mile and a 1.16 miles. And if her career was only defined by a 1.125 miles, she'd probably be still trying to knock out her 2 other than condition. So I guess, all these horses have optimal trips that they need as far as the distance. And sometimes you take too long to figure them out, or I just feel like I wish I had started her longer earlier. But having said that, she had a good body of work under her to tackle the long distances when they came up. So,
how do you determine what a horse's preferred surface is going to be, what their preferred distance is going to be? Is that something that you can only do in the afternoons when you get them to the races?
A lot of trial and error. I think racing is the big equalizer, and you're going to learn the most from a race. Obviously, pedigree really comes into play. I think when it comes to turf racing, you can lean on pedigree quite a bit. How they move, maybe their physical makeup would certainly lean towards it. The one thing I've really learned, and if I was handicapping, especially route races, I think pedigree comes into play the most when you're going an extreme route of ground, and I think that's when pedigree really starts to shine through. Obviously, you need the physique, but I think, a pedigree can be a lot more reliable, when you start stretching out. It seems like you can lean on it quite a bit more.
Well, Time Song certainly stretched out in the San Juan Capistrano. Tell me more about that runner-up effort.
He's just a neat horse that was sent to us by fellow Dwight Barron, smaller stable guy from Texas, really loves the game. We're just getting started with him. And, we ran him in. I watched a lot of his replays. It looks like he's got one gear. We ran him in a starter, kind of was stuck behind horses, finished second, came out of it great. Thought we'd wheel him back in 6 days and take a shot and see we'd take them as far as they go. Not this time. You definitely can get some route out of that stallion. And then one of my favorite broodmare sires of all time, Smart Strike, is such a great influence. So I just thought off pedigree that we'd go ahead and give it a shot. And, look, he almost pulled an upset.
Yeah, what do you do with him after this?
That's a good question. I mean, he's still eligible for a starter, but, I've never done the 1.6 miles back to a mile, a sharp mile at Del Mar. So we'll probably not do that to him. I think we'll wait till mid-meet. There's a 1X going 1.5 miles, and, let him run 1.5 miles and see if that's his trip. And maybe we can change him and turn him into a horse that is a marathoner.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of fun, right? It's a puzzle, isn't it, when you start working with these horses?
It's a constant puzzle. It really is, and it's a lot of fun, and I think that's part of the part of the fun of getting under the hood of a horse and figuring out what they're all about. And, when you've got great clients, we're very privileged. We've got some really good clients that are knowledgeable, and it's fun to, go to the drawing board and work together and pick each other's brains. And, look, there's plenty of times we've done it. It's backfired, but this weekend it worked, and it was a lot of fun.
Jonathan, I remember you and I talking on my Trainer Talk show back in, I think it was 2017. And, we talked about your background and growing up around some of the most iconic names in racing and all those types of things. What's this journey been like for you? And what have you enjoyed most about being a horse trainer for a living?
It's a very good question. I think as time has gone on, it's really being around the animals themselves. I've always been gravitated towards that. Although we've got a very structured life and, we're constantly working, there's a great sense of freedom about the whole thing as well. And, I just think being able to come to work and problem solve and do it with some great people, it's just the whole aspect of the challenges you're confronted with daily, I think, if you let them, can be a lot of fun, even if it doesn't work out all the time. So I think just the horses themselves and trying to get them to perform at their best. And then when you're doing it with good people and sharing the experience, it's a great, it's a great way to live.
There may be somebody listening right now that's considering getting into training racehorses for a living. What advice do you give to them, Jonathan?
This is a really unique industry where, listen, I eked through high school. I wouldn't have gotten into the college of my choice had I been able to. But this business, if you go up to the best trainers, you ask them for a job, chances are there's a place to get started. You might be better off being a hot walker for Bill Mott than a assistant for a smaller guy. And, you can basically join the best quote-unquote universities that we have, which would be some of the better trainers. And, if you work hard and listen and show up, it's amazing how far you can get.
Who are some of the people that helped you get started?
Funny enough, and it was a real tragic affair with Christoph passing away, but, I was interviewed a couple weeks ago. I had a bad injury as a steeplechase jockey as a teenager, was trying to get back, could never really get back to where I wanted. And I spent a summer at Saratoga riding some bad horses, freelance, really kind of a confused young guy. Christoph was the first guy from the flat world to pull me aside and, bring me into his fold and let me join his stable. And a year later, I worked my way up to being an assistant for a few years. And, although we were kind of in the same arena at Saratoga, the jump people and the flat people are kind of separated. And, you kind of look at the flat people with some awe and you don't really know if you belong in that realm. He was probably he was the first person that gave me a chance and the confidence to, approach it from a career standpoint. And then obviously gravitating to Todd Pletcher, that, like I said, going to the top university, I got very, very lucky to be a part of that program. And those two guys probably to this day are the most influential, people on my training career.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about some of the horses that you had the chance to be around when you were with Christoph and with Todd. Names like Voodoo Dancer and England's Legend, Forbidden Apple. And I think when you were with Todd, weren't you around Super Saver and Uncle Mo?
Uncle Mo, we spent a lot of time with Super Sabers there, Quality Road, SK and Dorea. We had some great fillies, Devil May Care, Awesome Maria. I mean, it was a kind of cornucopia of big name horses. And, it was just a real, very lucky to be a part of the whole thing. And, when you work for Todd, you're right there with him, working and it's a great experience. And, was very blessed to be able to have that kind of opportunity because it's not always those come around.
Didn't you tell me you spent a little time with Dale too?
I did.
Yeah.
I did one winter for him, and at the time he was absolutely rolling. He had Roses in May and and Kitten's Joy, and that was the year Roses and May won the Dubai World Cup. And I was lucky to get on both those horses, and be around Dale, who's a top-notch horseman. But I think that one thing Dale probably doesn't get credit for is he's such an astute handicapper. I think he's probably better than. That's a real strong suit that probably few people realize, but I always found him to be a real awesome judge of a horse once they got on the racetrack,
The funny thing is he hates handicapping. When he joins me on the show every week, he tries to steer it away from handicapping because he thinks it's incredibly boring.
He's taking you off horses to bet probably. He's so good. He's putting a smoke show up for you. I think he's a very clever guy, and I enjoy getting to know him. It's been fun getting to know him throughout the years. He's a really intelligent guy.
Are you a pretty good handicapper?
A lot about the business too. He's one of the best advocates I think the horse business has in a trainer. He seems to be very vested that way.
Yeah, unquestionably. Are you a pretty good handicapper, Jonathan?
I am not with numbers. Every once in a while I'll get in the paddock and see something from a horse that will make me make a good handicapping decision, but it's probably the weakest part of my repertoire. I'm better with the horses than I am with numbers, but I do practice. I'm trying to get a lot better with the way I would approach races and handicapping and seeing if I'm going to stay in. And certainly when we run in stakes, I do a lot of recon, with Fragisons. And I don't know if people are using time form once horses get entered, but I've had a lot of luck using the time form, the pace projectors.
Talking with trainer Jonathan Thomas here on the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires on HRRN. In the midst of yet another rock-solid year. And this has been your M.O., Jonathan. You're so consistent year in and year out. And I think when people think of your name, they're always going to associate you with a horse named Catholic Boy, and I know you're okay with that.
Oh, yeah. Listen, he was the first horse to really get our name out into the national stage. He was a unique horse where I bought him as a weanling, and we actually broke him and started him and were able to train him. I had multiple opportunities to mess him up. And thankfully, he was so good he was able to overcome a lot of it. But really talented horse. He took us on a trip that I've been looking to go back on ever since. So,
if you're looking to pick up a new trainer for your horse, you can't do much better than Jonathan Thomas. Jonathan, you bring that resume that you just talked about with you, the experience of working with Christoph and Todd Pletcher and Dale Romans. That's one hell of a trifecta right there. What's Jonathan Thomas's training philosophy, and what did you take away from those guys that helps you with your operation today?
I mean, patience would be a big thing. They're living, breathing creatures. They have good days and bad days. I think keeping open-minded, really trying to keep your horses happy, having them approach each day with a positive kind of training regimen in front of them, keeping them as sound as possible, I think allows you to get to more races. I think we're in a new kind of post-HISA landscape where I think as trainers we're allowed to be a little more patient now, which I love. I think it's kind of been something that has come more organically to me, so it's nice to be able to turn horses out and stop on them. And I think just letting horses develop on their own, and then once you get them good, the one thing I've started to do way more, and I've been a little braver about it, is I run horses a lot more than I used to. I run them back a lot more than I used to. I think I was when you're in New York, you kind of got this formula. It's like every 5 weeks, every 6 weeks. That's like the magic number. And it's great if you're, a guy with 300 horses and you have a lot of horses fighting for the same condition. But I mean, we've won Greatest Stakes this winter, wheeling back in 5 days or 4 days, or, almost did it a second or third time last weekend. And, so once they're fit and good, they're here to race. And, I try to run them a lot more, and that's worked out great.
You've also had a lot of success purchasing horses. If I'm not mistaken, is it, 14 Greatest Stakes winners that you've purchased?
Yes. Yeah, we've been very lucky at the sales, at all levels, weanlings, 2-year-olds, yearlings. It's something I really, we've been lucky with. I also really enjoy it. It's the recruiting process can never be underestimate it. I think that's really the key to being very successful versus just kind of hanging on. So, look, we're always looking to buy more and to recruit more. But, I'm proud of our track record at the sales. We've certainly done well when we've had the opportunity.
What does the summer racing season have in store for Jonathan Thomas and your stable?
A lot of flying. So we're going to have 20 at Del Mar, 20 at Colonial. That place I really think is on the rise. The purse money is excellent, super turf course. And then we're going to have 10 at Saratoga. So we'll be traveling quite a bit, also shipping horses around to where they belong. But those are the three venues that we're going to, really focus on, hopefully culminating with bringing a whole bunch of horses back to Del Mar for November. The goal is always to get a horse or two to the Breeders' Cup and, kind of go from there. But I'm excited about the summer. I think we've got some 2-year-olds that we're excited about, debuting late July, August, and see where they take us.
Well, this has been a really fun visit, as always, Jonathan. Appreciate the time. Keep it rolling this summer. We'll be cheering for you, and all the best moving forward.
All right, Mike. I appreciate it. Like always, appreciate what you do. You do a super job, and thanks for representing our business so well.
Thanks, man. Keep it rolling.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right, Jonathan Thomas here.